I started on this mission to bring changes in the mountains of Ladakh, particularly the lives of young people who face so many problems on top of the mountain conditions through education, failure in the education system, and so on. So that mission we started when I was a teenager in engineering college, and I'll share few stories with you today because the spirit, as I said, is very similar. So, to begin with, Ladakh is a very remote and challenging part of this world, I would say, across the Himalayas, trans-Himalayan rather than Himalayan. As you can see, as you approach this place, say by an aeroplane, most people would say, this is not Earth, this is perhaps some other planet. It's inhospitable, almost uninhabitable looking, and they would go back. And temperatures to top it, you can see, range from minus 35 to plus 35. We say it's like being in space in Ladakh. You can have frostbite and sunburn at the same time. If your feet are in the shade, frostbite. If your face is in the sun, sunburn. Very close to how it would be in the space. But our ancestors have given down this spirit of do whatever it takes. They didn't return when they saw this place so harsh, so difficult. They instead, in the midst of a desert, this is on top of all the things I explained, a mountain desert, there's hardly any water, 4 inches of rain in the whole year. Yet they did whatever it takes. They carved streams that had glacial melt water a little, carved the rocks to make canals and bring the water to patches of sandy desert, and then planted barley, which was very innovative because it's one crop that has the shortest gestation time. So you can get that crop in this place, and that's how life started in this place. So our ancestors handed down this spirit to us, and it is, as I said, a very cold place, but they were again innovative and spirited. Apart from making the houses warm in different ways that they could in those times, they were very clever also. It's not just about making your room warm, which they do in Canada, which they do in the US and so on. It's more, it's as much about social reasons. Yeah? So they made the winter interesting, not with all the resources of the world like some countries would do, but through social innovation. So the cold winter, which you would think people would dread, became very colorful when they designed the winters or seasons in a way that the winter will be full of all the festivals. So people started waiting for the festivals and counting the winter away from festival to festival. It's full of festivals. You don't even know when winter finishes. Young people look forward to winter. So they were clever, they were spirited from times immemorial to design life around such colorful festivals. So even in these harsh, inhospitable climates, not only did our ancestors survive, but a whole colorful civilization thrived with its own music, dances, spirituality, livelihoods in harmony with nature. This is what we learned, or I learned, as I grew up in Ladakh, that they were very spirited, very innovative, and so should we take it forward. But coming to the present age, and in my youth, being a microscopic minority in the mountains with a different set of challenges and a different, language, culture, does mean a lot of problems. So we are a microscopic minority, not only linguistic, ethnic, but environmental, technical, and many of the things that work in the plains don't work there. For example, when schools came to this region, they were full of things that children cannot relate to. And when I was growing up, I came face to face with this situation where 95% of the students were failing in their 10th grade exams. Yeah? I learned this when I was doing my engineering. Some chance that I had to earn my expenses of my education myself. I had an issue with my father about the stream of engineering that I should choose, and there was a difference, and he wanted me to do it on my own if I went on with mechanical engineering, which was my love. So I decided I'll do it on my own, and therefore I had to do something to earn my expenses for an expensive engineering course. And I decided to go back to Ladakh and teach 10th grade students, and that was an accident which brought me face to face with this situation. So I saw when I taught that every year, repeatedly, 95% of the students were failing in the exams, and the whole system, teachers, parents, blamed them for this failure. And as I taught them, I was amazed that they were so bright, so good when explained in the ways they understood. They were very clear about all the concepts, yet they would fail in the exams. I later learned that there was nothing wrong with the students. Everything was wrong with the system. A system which put in their hands books that don't mean anything in alien languages like Urdu or English for children who speak Ladakhi, which is a totally different stream of language, Tibeto-Burman. And then they are made to learn in Urdu at 6, Indo-Aryan language, which, the script is from right to left. And then in 8th grade, they have to switch to English, another stream of language. So you could see why they would fail. And the books were full of alien context that made no sense to a person in the mountains. So, for example, you have A for apple and B for ball, okay? It's a little crazy to learn that way, but makes a little sense for most children. A, B are abstract. They are just squiggles. They are just symbols. And to make this a little more understandable, some clever person thought, let me relate it to something the child can associate, a concrete thing. Apple was a good idea, which means something to the child. So A for apple, B for ball. A child could be interested in a ball. But when you take that mantra and just cut and paste in the mountains, it becomes F for fan. In minus 30 degrees, you don't want to think of something to cool you. So you can understand the children looking at this contraption. Sir, what is this fan? You don't know what a fan is? No, sir, we don't know. Actually, I also don't know, my child, is what the teacher would say, because you really don't know, grown-ups or children at that height. And if the teacher goes now on Google or dictionaries and says, this is a contraption to cool you, children would wonder, why would you ever need to cool yourselves when it is so cold already? So you can understand why they would then fail. This was just an example. It's full of these examples, and I won't bore you more or entertain you more than bore. I think it's so entertaining how we sometimes blindly do things as if it is a ritual, which it is not. It means a lot to a child's life. So while teaching them, I more than earned my expenses of doing engineering. I had thought in the first year I'll go and teach and earn for the first year. Second year I'll do that for the second year. But my venture in teaching children was so effective and so successful that in the first year itself I earned enough for all the 3 years. And then, thank you. So that experience of that winter changed my life. Firstly, I thought money can be earned any time. In 2 months, you earn for 3 years. That's not the most interesting thing. There are more important things, So I half-jokingly say I got demonetized long, long ago, The craze for money, you saw you can make, so I got disinterested in that. Instead, I got very much like a feeling of doing something to change the system, change others' lives. And therefore, I say it was like a realization that in life, it's not always about what I need, but also what needs me. And I saw that this system that was crippling so many young minds, cutting their wings, clipping their wings, I should do something to change that. So therefore, I soon started working on how to change the education system in Ladakh. And I was lucky to meet many like-minded young people who also saw the problems of this kind of education. So we started, as soon as I finished my engineering, others did other things, 7 or 8 of us, slowly growing, started teaching the children who were facing problems. But soon we saw that even if they were doing well in exams, this was like repairing broken products. And we could be doing that for another 5 decades if the system keeps producing broken products. So we said, no, we have to do whatever it takes and change things at the source so the children or the products do not break in the first place. So we launched a movement together with the government and the communities in the villages to change the schools in the villages so that they don't break in the first place. So this was a movement called Operation New Hope, trying to do whatever it takes to change the situation in the schools, to not accept this 95% failure. Although I can tell you, in those days we used to have not enough teachers from Ladakh, so they would come from across the mountains from Kashmir. They wouldn't understand the context, and the children wouldn't even understand their language. So they would just blame the children. These children will never do good in maths or science. And they would invent pseudo-scientific reasons like, there is not enough oxygen in the air. These kids will never do well. So if there is not enough oxygen, what can a child do? So they would give up even the little they could do. So that was the challenge in those days. And what we did, again, to change the system is not easy, right? If you go to the government and say, your system is not working, we'll change it, and that too, if you're 21 years old, they'll say, get lost, right? So we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to go to a commissioner or a minister. If they're very friendly, by some chance, or a relative, they may even change. But the change will last as long as the commissioner or the minister lasts. It's not a long-lasting change. So therefore, we worked on changing the people and their priorities, shifting their priority from rice and kerosene to education. So we took one school first and changed the priorities of the people and formed village committees to look after education. We changed the textbooks so that it would reflect local context. And each step, most people we consulted, adults, grown-ups, experts, they said, not possible. You will change all the textbooks? Not possible. This is government's job. You can't. But we did. We changed the textbooks to reflect local culture, local environment. Not to say that that's all they need, but you have to start with local and then go global. You have to start with known and then go to the unknown, right? Thank you. Thank you. So going from known to unknown is what education should be. And therefore, we trained all the teachers. When people said, these teachers can never teach all those things, we said, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll train all the teachers, and we organize trainings for thousands of teachers, thousands of village leaders to take charge of the schools, change the textbooks, and slowly the results started changing from yeah. As you can see, it was a consistent 5% pass, 95% failure, or even worse before that. Slowly, in 7 years or so, it went to 55, then 49, then 72, and 75, and so on, right? Proving thus a very important scientific theory that it was not oxygen in the air. It was just the need to do what there was no need for this energy. So we started putting them in classrooms, but that energy gifted over millions of years is still there. And that's why often it comes out in very ugly ways, like teenager rage, rebellion. And therefore I say that children who don't learn in these classrooms are more normal than those who do well. Yeah, I'm more surprised that we are doing somewhat well in this. And therefore, we wanted to create a school where these teenagers would have a channelizing of their energies in doing things and learning in that way. So as school, we wanted these kids to design themselves, build themselves, and run themselves, yeah? Which is where their energies should go, and which is how they would learn most effectively, rather than from memorizing pages of books which we are not designed for over millions of years. So this is from 94 again. This bunch of students, with help, they designed how this school would be, and through workshops and so on. So that's where their energies are now going. And over the next 5 years, they actually hand-built this school with, of course, the help of, grown-ups, masons, and so on, but very much the students using their energy to move bricks, to lay bricks, and learning that way along mathematics and geometry and science and so on. So this was a very special school that way for very special people. To begin with, the criteria of admission in this school, which runs the same way still, the criteria is not your percentage or marks, but that you have failed in the exam system. Yeah? So that is the criteria. Yeah. Others who have done really well can be on waiting list, but this is for those who have failed. And it is also very different in that it tries to teach grown-ups about how to live in harmony with nature on the planet. So it's built of natural materials like mud, earth, but using science. And it is powered by nothing but the sun, using science that you study in your high schools. We heat the campus, but then give solutions like sun over our head, anybody can afford. Soil under our feet, anybody can afford. Nobody's so poor. So why can't everybody live in dignity if they have two hands to make these two meet, the sun and the earth? And this school is very different, that the students are in the driving seat because they have all this energy that you can't contain in a classroom, quiet classroom. So why not make them partners in running the system itself? So here, the students run this school like a little country. They have a government for 2 months. It changes every 2 months. And they take responsibilities of running the whole system like a little country. And the responsibilities they take are not mock responsibility. They are real. Some of them would take care of all the cows that give the milk for the campus. Others take care of all the solar gadgets. Yet others produce organic vegetables for the campus. But they each apply what they learn in classrooms to this. So the ones producing vegetables would sell it to the campus kitchen and track what they could earn, which is the selling price, and track what went in, which is the cost price, and learn profit is equal to selling price minus cost price practically. Yeah? And the others would take care of the solar power plant. We have been, zero energy, off-grid since mid-90s, when these terms were not even invented. Yeah? So more complicated science of, say, germ theory would be learnt while making jam from the apricots that grow wild in autumn. They just fall in a week and have a shelf life of 1 week. But using their science from the science class, they can make it last 1 year by sterilizing using germ theory. So you can apply what you learn. And then they would share their experience in the campus newspaper or the campus radio like real world and prepare for the world of tomorrow. And they come as failures, but almost all of them go back as leaders. And some of them lead in their own fields that they chose at the school. For example, there are some who have now taken the fruit preservation to another height by launching jam and preserved fruit companies. Yeah? Others who have dealt with visitors to the campus launched Ladakh Women's Travel Company and has become world famous for that. Yet others go back and add value to what their regions produce, like yak cheese, and supply to the hotels in and around the area and export even. So these are things that they can then take beyond the school and into their lives. Like this, at this campus, we make learning and then applying it for innovation a part of their life. And innovations revolve around the context in the mountains like earth, sun, ice, and fire. So earth is this ancient material with which our ancestors built. But we thought, why brand it as something old and throw away? Why not modernize it and build even today with this beautiful natural material which is available right under our feet? So this whole campus is built with earth, as you can see. And it is, at that time when we started in the 90s, people would laugh at us and say, you are taking us backwards. We are now modern. We should build with concrete, not with earth. But we saw no reason. If New York does it, let them do. They may have reason. We don't need to in a place like Ladakh. Concrete is so cold, you can afford to build, but you can't afford to live. And that's why most Ladakhi rich people who save their lives' earnings and build a concrete house in the city come to Goa in winters because they can't live in their houses. There was nothing wrong with the material. So we said, add value to it, add your learnings from the science to this, and add what our ancestors didn't have, say, solar energy. And you can see there, down there, the chapter on heat in 10th grade would come alive when they would apply it to heat their buildings. So heat, you would remember, is about convection, conduction, radiation. So there, you have a greenhouse covered on the building in the winter, and the greenhouse gets the sun and air gets heated, expands, becomes lighter, goes through the window to the house, and then gives its heat to the walls, becomes cooler, denser, and is pushed back into the greenhouse, and the cycle continues all day. Just the natural force of convection, no fans, no power, no bills. And this is what convection is. This is how winds blow on the earth. But they apply it to their own houses, buildings, and live happily in the winter. So the buildings that use these are plus 15 when it is minus 15 outside. So their lessons become unforgettable. We don't need to curse them for forgetting their lessons. They would if they are forgettable. So some of them then apply it to, as an entrepreneur, to build for other people. For example, the military, the hotels, resorts. solar-heated earth buildings. Yeah? But as I said, in the beginning when we started with mud building, people thought we were crazy. They would laugh at it. But slowly, we stood our grounds because we saw sense in it. We gave it even more, improvement with the science and things that we learned. And slowly, the world started catching up with us because we persevered. We didn't give up when people laughed at us. So in 2016, our campus got the world's best earth buildings award at the world, the Terra 2016 at the World Earth Congress in Lyon, because we didn't give up when others didn't believe, as long as this idea was sound. And as you, apart from earth, as I said, we use the sun for all our energy needs, whether it is cooking, greenhouses that grow fresh greens in cold winters, lighting, electricity needs, water heating, name it. Even the cows here live in solar-heated cow sheds. Yeah? And when you give, out of compassion, warmth of solar energy to the cows, we discovered that they reciprocate the generosity. We didn't expect, but we learned that the cows are giving 3 times more milk than other cows in Ladakh. And later we related it, related it to the science chapter, which says warm-blooded animals have to keep their bodies, for example, us or the cows, at plus 37, come what may, or else we'll die from fever if it is hot, or hypothermia, right? That's what warm-blooded animals have to do. And when you don't have a warm cow shed, the poor cow has to maintain that temperature, and where will all the energy come from? The food that she eats. So all the food goes into maintaining the temperature. Where will we get milk? So all cows almost dry up in winters. But if you give that warmth through cheaper means like the solar-heated cow shed, the food can become milk, and therefore 3 times more milk. This we discovered much later. So that's how you can link your learnings. And while people didn't laugh at these things, they didn't quite trust that this was possible. And again, the world started catching up 20 years later when we got the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture in Paris. So we need to dare, and who dares wins, as they say. Now the world of ice. This cold region is a world of ice anyway, and ice is critical for our survival in the mountains. Ice is a serious business, but there is a lighter side to ice also, and I'll take that one first. You would think it's a cold place and young people would run away from winters in Ladakh, but no. Even if they are studying in Mumbai or Goa, in winters you would see them going back to Ladakh. You know why? Many of the young people, not all, but those who are interested in ice hockey. This is the rage in winters in Ladakh. Yeah? This sport is our national game, ice hockey. Everywhere, young people are playing ice hockey. But 15 years ago, we noticed that this is great. Winter becomes so colorful because of sports like this, ice skating, ice hockey. But something most people had missed was that this is all about men. All the tournaments, all the sports around ice was just for men. There was no place for women. They were not even touching these games. And then we said at our school, why is that? Do they really not want to play? We discovered that perhaps this could be because all the ice rinks are reservoirs or ponds that freeze, and these are not close to the town or villages, and they are so inconveniently located that girls find it a problem, perhaps. And therefore, we said, let's do whatever it takes and see if girls also want to play. And that's when we used some high school science and built an open-air ice rink, a make-it-anywhere ice rink on any flat ground, not a reservoir, not a pond. Until then, people thought it takes a reservoir, a pond. And now everybody builds it this way. And this was built right outside, as you saw, the girls' hostel. So they could jump on the ice from their bedrooms. And slowly, they started playing inter-school, inter-district, interstate, and finally, they started representing India in the Asia Challenge Cup. So if you haven't heard that there's an Indian women's ice hockey team, I don't blame you, because this country knows only about. Got it. But we need to look at beyond cricket. There is a world. Yeah? So that was ice, the fun side of it. Ice, as I said, can be serious business also, especially now with global warming. Our glaciers are melting away, and people are having more problems around water. They always had problems. It's a desert. But now, in springtime, it's not warm enough for the natural glaciers to melt for the farmers to get the water, and it is smaller glaciers, so the water is a trickle, and everybody in spring wants water. All the plants, trees are waking up asking for water in springtime. But then, in July, August, the season warms up, and the glaciers melt, and there is not only water, there is excess of water. There are floods in the streams because the glaciers are melting faster. Add to that some rain, and you have flash floods and problems. And this flow, this big flow, continues into autumn, and even winter there is a flow. But in winter, nobody needs water, so the water just goes into the Indus River and then to Pakistan and Arabian Sea. So they don't use it. So 4 years ago, together with a group of my students, we started working on this idea of freezing the water in winter so that it can last till May and June when water is critical. Again, people laughed. They said, what? You will keep ice from winter till May and June? Everybody knows by March all the ice and snow on ground is gone. How will you keep it till June? We said, we'll try. We'll see how it can be done. We didn't quite know whether it was possible even to keep ice till May or June, but we wanted to try. And then luckily one day, outside our school, there's a bridge. And under that bridge, I noticed there was a chunk of ice in mid-May. So the answer as to whether it is possible was there, that it is possible since you found that ice under the bridge. But then, under the bridge, something is different. Can you guess what? Temperature is same. It's springtime under the bridge also. But what is different is there is no direct sun, right? So sun is what melts the ice more than springtime. It's sun we should deal with and not give up because it is warm spring. So we could separate the reason. Sun is what we need to cut, but easier said than done. How do you cut sun for a big chunk of ice that can solve water problems? You can't have a big bridge. You can't have any material. It's so unaffordable. So we were brainstorming for what material could be cheap and so on. And then we found the answer not in materials, out of the box in high school science or geometry this time. So in geometry, you might have, or in physics, you might have been made to memorize that certain shapes have minimal surface area for the given volume, like spheres, hemispheres, and cones. So we said, it's not about materials, it's about cutting the sun, can we use a shape to do that with low surface area and high volume? Why low surface area? Because the sun needs surface area to act. It doesn't care about volume. And farmers need volume. They don't care about surface area. So if you make a cone of the ice, then the sun may not get enough surface area. So we devised a very simple system. Again, it should be affordable, it should be simple, doable. All we did was put a pipe upstream. In the mountains, you have an upstream and downstream. Bring it downstream to a desert where you want to grow things, and water always maintains its level. That's high school science or middle school science. So the water will want to go to the same level as the source, and therefore there will be pressure, and you put a fountain and it sprays water in the -20 air, thereby it loses its latent heat, which we were again made to memorize, but not much more than that. And when you lose your latent heat, the water freezes as it falls and naturally forms a cone, a large cone. This one was 7 stories tall, containing roughly 1 million liters of water. Now, we wanted to see how long it lasted. We had bets around it would see through April or mid-May or end of May, but the pilot lasted till July 6th. Yeah? And it slowly gave its water as it melted to the plants that we planted to prove the concept. Now our challenge was, technical solution there was, okay, but how do you make it acceptable to people? How can people associate with it? It's not a scientist's answer always that really works in society. It has to make sense to the people. So to brand it as something that people can relate to, we saw that there were other cones or conical structures in the environment, and they are called stupas all over Himalayas. So this conical structure looked like that, so we said we wouldn't call it ice cones or something like that. We started calling it ice stupas. Ice stupas, and stupas often have prayer flags, as you see on the right. And so to position it that way, we put prayer flags on the first pilot stupa, and it was presented as ice stupas, and people became so interested that now the ice stupas have become a place of pilgrimage almost. So people come and pay their obeisance, and you have to select, and collaborate with other partners. When the challenge is big, you can't be just you. You have to collaborate, learn to work with even unlikely partners. So while positioning it as ice stupas, we collaborated with spiritual leaders to solve the problem of climate change. So we collaborated with spiritual leaders to students, whatever it takes to solve the problem. And thereafter, then, we kept building bigger and bigger ice stupas. From 1 million liters ice stupa, we went to 3 million liters in this one, and then this past winter, we made 30 million liters of ice, and we hope to go much bigger this winter. Yeah. So you can see it was nearly 9 stories tall with 3 million liters of water. That would work in this way. On the right, you can see how in winter it makes itself, the making of the ice stupa. On the left, it is how it unmakes or melts. And as it melts, you collect it in a tank, and that takes it to the roots of the trees through a drip system. And that's how you can keep the plants alive. So there were 5,000 trees that are growing in a total desert that has never seen any plantation forever. Yeah? And these are now melting away, as you can see. This is from June, this last June, as the ice melts. Now some people say, oh, they are melting, but that's what they are supposed to do. If they melt, they'll give their water and life to the trees, right? Now the question was how to sustain it. How can people finance this water? Who will make? How do they manage the cost? So again, we started doing whatever it takes to turn it into an income of its own so that we can sustain it. So how the ice stupa is made is it has a tunnel to access the core. At the core there is a dome where you control the pipes, and now we are working on, it's not yet done, we are working on turning the inside of the ice stupa into an interesting enclosure which can become an ice hotel inside the ice stupas, yeah? Now, ice hotels are done in many of the cold countries. You have ice beds, ice furniture, ice cups, and ice plates, and so on, and they charge $1,000 a night. But they are just for that, and they melt for nothing. This will be an experience for the visitors inside and water for the farmers outside. Yeah? Now, finally, an application of this technique to solve natural disasters. I don't know, many of you would know of this flood in Uttarakhand, right? The disaster, what is it called? The Kedarnath, yes, Kedarnath disaster, which killed some 7,000 or so. The bad news is that this was caused by a glacial lake partially, and there are many such glacial lakes forming in the Himalayas as glaciers are melting very fast. There are some 300 lakes out of 8,000 that have been declared dangerous. And one such very dangerous lake is in Sikkim called the Ladakh Lake. And 2 years ago, the government of Sikkim, based on some experience we have in this, invited us to make an operation on this lake to minimize the disaster risks. And we went to this lake with a very simple high school science, called the siphon technique, whereby you suck water out of any container, normally used for buckets, or this is the way you steal petrol from cars as teenagers, right? You just suck and then out comes the water. It's a gift of nature. It's a free pump which operates till about 10 meters at sea level. It's a free, no power, no energy pump. But for draining a lake, you can't take a little hose. You have to take huge pipes, and we took on yak backs pipes for 4 days trek to this lake bang on the border of Tibet or China. You can see that, and I sometimes amuse myself by thinking how the Chinese satellites would have seen these and thought of cannons advancing towards their borders, right? But I say this was for a more serious enemy than nations. This was against climate change, for which nations should unite rather than fight, right? So we went up to the Ladakh Lake at 17,000 feet, very inhospitable, and this was a team with our school doing the technical lead, and Sikkim government engineers and military also in the operation. And it was the first time that military was involved not in taking bodies after a disaster, but in preventing a disaster, yeah? Which is how it should be. So you can see how we laid the pipes on the lake. We had challenges in putting the pipes. We had thought we would move them and join them, but there was no place to even join them. So we used, again, high school science. Archimedes' principle taught us that the pipes would float on their own, and we can take them like a train of pipes, using the river's force to move it down the mouth of the lake. And that's how, I'll share with you again. Our challenge was first to take these pipes on yak backs at small lengths and then join them on the lake or on the shore of the lake. But when we got there, there was no shore to join them, and we were about to fail But then to our help came this high school science, the Archimedes principle, and going by it, we got the confidence to join it on the lake surface. Nothing could be flatter than a lake surface, and then use the force of the flowing water to move it rather than the drudgery of dragging it. And that's how we did, together with this military and the engineers, move it from the lake surface using high school science. So what I was saying earlier, that what we have in classes can be much more than just examinations. You know? It can be very useful in life. Okay, so this is close to the end. After 7 days of work on this lake, we were able to lay 3 pipelines draining the lake at 50 liters per second, and now we have put 3 more this year, and we'll be experimenting with the first pilot. And if it all goes well, there's a new plan that we are working on. These lakes, dangerous lakes, can become an asset if you drain the water through siphon and make ice stupa glaciers out of it. Not one, not two, whole matrix of it, tens of them in the width and dozens of them more than, or scores of them in the length, so that they slowly grow and merge and become a glacier growing under the lake, refreezing what has already melted. And this could be, in other words, reglaciating the Himalayas, something that has not happened in the last 10,000 years. Yeah? We are working on it in the heights of Ladakhi valleys to simulate the situation. When all components work, we hope to plant it on one of these lakes and see. And if it works, then these lakes can actually be not only controlled, but they become an asset of water source. Now, finally, such solutions, as you saw, series of solutions, are interesting, but it's not good if they are just one-off to a place or a group of people. They should become a part of every young person's life. So, therefore, we wanted to change higher education also, which has become a ritual where young people in their 20s are again trapped in a classroom, lectured for 6 hours a day. And now we are working on an alternative university, in this case for the mountains, where young people actually work on things and learn from that and apply to solve problems in their own regions. Yeah? A makers doers university to turn this desert into something like this. And for these ice stupas, we got an international prize called the Rolex Award. So we are using this prize to kickstart the university so that universities around the world could have a ripple effect and make them into more happening places. Yeah? We wanted to use this award in that direction. So the day this award was announced with a handsome sum of money, we launched a crowdfunding campaign to start this university. There's a very short video that tells you about what this university would be based on this school experience. So I'll just go for that. Yeah.
I've never let my schooling interfere with my education. So said Mark Twain. How about you? Do you miss your school or college days? You perhaps do, but perhaps not for the classrooms and teachings. You actually perhaps wished every day that the school be closed the next day so you could stay home. But here's a school in Ladakh where the most dreaded punishment is to be sent home for 2 weeks, where students learn by doing things, where they engage in various innovations to solve real-life problems like climate change, where they run the school themselves like a little country with an elected government and learn management and governance that way, where they learn communication by running the campus newspaper and radio, science by designing and building their own school, solar-heated mud buildings that stay at +15 even when -15 winters, kindness and compassion through introspection and meditation. A school where the criteria of admission is not your percentage, but that the conventional system has failed you.
Hi, I'm Sonam Wangchuk from Ladakh, a remote mountain region in the Indian Himalayas. 25 years ago, when I was finishing my own engineering education, I saw that schools were a pain for everyone, but for mountain children, it was doubly painful and irrelevant. Children who spoke Ladakhi or Tibetan at home were made to sit all day memorizing in alien languages like Urdu or English. F for fan, S for ship, T for train.
Till recently, every year, 95% of the students used to fail in the all-important 10th grade exams.
Together with like-minded friends, we launched SECMOL, the Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of Ladakh, and said enough is enough.
Working with the government, we rewrote many textbooks, retrained the teachers, and organized the villagers. And the results started changing too. For those who still failed, we started the alternative school that you just saw. And the results? Thewang Rigzin went on to become a top journalist and later became the education minister of Ladakh Hill Council at 27. He had failed his 10th grade 5 times. Stanzin became a filmmaker and has been winning awards across countries. He had failed 4 times. Miss Tinless is today a celebrated social entrepreneur. She had failed 3 times. But now we see that the state of higher education is no better. Not only for Ladakhis, who of course are doubly disadvantaged again, but for you in the big cities too. It's time we change this. We in Ladakh are dreaming again. This time our dream is to create an alternative university that will use all our learnings from the past 25 years. Once again, a hands-on doers university, where the School of Business runs real-life companies on campus. The School of Tourism runs high-end hotels and simple homestays. The School of Education runs innovative schools. The revenues from these sustain the university while the students get free higher education and of course hands-on experience. But this is more than a dream now. His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche, one of the top spiritual leaders in Tibetan Buddhism after His Holiness the Dalai Lama, is supporting this cause as the chief patron. The Hill Council government of Ladakh has earmarked roughly 200 acres of land, and the ice Stupa artificial glaciers have already started greening this desert. A fully solar-heated, mud-built university township is being planned by some of India's top architects.
Together, let's start the next learning revolution, where education is not limited to just the 3 R's, all too much to do with the head alone, where skills of the hands and kindness of the heart are given equal importance. Sure, it would take significant financial resources to materialize this ambitious dream. Recently, I was awarded the prestigious Rolex Award for Enterprise for the Ice Stupa artificial glaciers.
Sonam Wangchuk.
I contribute my Rolex Award as a seed for this cause. Thank you very much. I have decided to contribute the roughly 1 crore rupees as a seed fund to finally raise 150 crore rupees for the first phase of the project. And I very much hope that you all will join me and match this contribution according to your capacities. Together, we can change the face of higher education forever, not just for Ladakh, but for the whole world.
So join us. The future has already begun.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you. So friends, Ladakh is full of challenges, but the human spirit is high too. When the going gets tough, tough get going, as they say. And I really like this Urdu couplet, which I'm sure will inspire you, and I would like to leave it behind with you. I like Urdu poetry very much, शायरी. तो शेर है, फलक को जिद है जहां बिजलियां गिराने की. फलक मालूम है आपको? आसमान. फलक को जिद है जहां बिजलियां गिराने की, हमें भी जिद है वहीं आशियां बनाने की. Okay. Thank you. Since you appreciate this, I'll give you another one that inspires me even more. Because you try, okay, हमें भी जिद है, but you fail. Then what? So the poet says, नशीमन पर नशीमन इस कदर तामीर करता जा. नशीमन is घोंसला, nest. नशीमन पर नशीमन इस कदर तामीर करता जा कि बिजली गिरते गिरते आप ही बेजार हो जाए. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I wish you all in Reliance Health Insurance Company that you are launching all the guts and glory that you deserve. And this is not the end, neither for me nor for you. Thank you very much. Thank you.